Hello everyone and welcome back to another storytime video. And today I am going to retell the story about my first job that I had while I was in high school. Now, I just want to start off by reminding everybody that it was a job for a local Mexican restaurant a few minutes down the road from where my parents lived. And so, um, for the last part of my junior year and through my senior year when I graduated, I worked at this Mexican restaurant as a busboy and a dishwasher. Now, it depended on uh, what my boss needed me to do at the time. Sometimes he needed me to dishwash, and sometimes he needed me to bus table. So, um, whatever he needed me to do between those two things, I did it, and I did it well, in my opinion. But I am a little biased in that regard. Regardless, as a busboy, it was typically bring the chips and salsa out to the table, or you washed tables. And typically, you would have two busboys, one to bring out the chips and salsa, and one to clean the tables when it was really busy on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and Sunday mornings. Because, big massive church rush comes in, and you would need to, well, you were typically busy. Like 95% of the time, you were busy on Sunday mornings during a big church rush. And so, as a busboy, you at least whenever I was there, you brought out the chips and salsa, and typically for uh 1 to 4 people, well 2 to 4 people, it was typically one chip basket with two salsas, and when there was only one person, then one of each, one salsa and one chip basket. But for 5 or 6 or in that neighborhood where you would sit at a round table instead of a booth, or one of those standard square tables in the middle of the restaurant, you would have three chips, three chip baskets, and five salsa, if I'm remembering correctly. And so that's kind of how it was as a busboy. And of course, you scooped the chips into the basket from the machine where they were kept warm and kept fresh, because there was a machine for that. And uh, of course, you grab the salsa out of the uh, fridge that we had back in the kitchen. Uh, we had one fridge to keep salsa and guacamole and uh, hot salsa dip, and uh, just most of the sauces that you need to keep refrigerated. And so that was being a busboy on that front. Now, in terms of cleaning tables, typically, whenever you cleaned the booths and the table that those square tables that sat 1 to 4 people in the middle of the restaurant. You guys know what I'm talking about if you've ever eaten out before, I'm sure. But those tables were, of course, easy to clean because they're not that big, and you just kind of move the dessert menu, the little thing that has all your sugar in it. Like if you have tea, and your salt and pepper shakers that are on the table as well. And so that the booze and the four or those square tables were very easy. I mean, you just wipe it down, get the side or get the sides, and then you kind of get the seat a little bit. Uh, well, both sides of the booth, and then all four chairs if it's that table. But with the tables, the round tables that hold like 5 to 6 or 7 people, uh, uh, we just those. Okay, so you have, of course, a square part in the middle, but typically you have a bit of a gap, and then kind of like a half oval shape. I mean, if you've seen those tables, then I'm sure that you know what I mean. But those come up kind of spring loaded, and you just kind of collapse them down and get in between that edge or those two edges there, because you can't really get the rag in between in that crack without uh, putting down that thing. So it effectively becomes a square table if it helps you visualize it. But you put the things up, and it's your rounded table, and of course you get the chairs and everything. But so and then for parties and stuff, which we'd call parties, had that's basically groups of more than 7 people. So typically, 8 or more people were considered a party. Now, of course, depending on the size of the party, you needed a reservation, and so we could kind of prepare. Uh, Say they were coming in at 6 o'clock, then we could go, okay, well it's 5:30, so we kind of need to get some of the tables and stuff prepared, and get all the chips and salsa ready, and do all that. And uh, I didn't mind taking out chips and salsa as much for a party as I did cleaning the tables. And the reason for that is that if so you're not alone. At least I wasn't typically alone in terms of getting the chips and salsa for everybody. Now, typically the rule is that, or was that, uh, if it was like a party of, let's say, 20, okay, so you got, uh, well, let's say 15, okay, so that you have 8 people, or no, 7 people on each side, and one person sitting at the end or whatever. So, but it was typically, uh, so you would have like 3 of those square tables pushed together, and that would be enough for 7 people on each side, I believe, or maybe it was only 2 square tables. No, it was 3. It was 3 square tables. So for a party of 15, you would have like 3 square tables uh, together, uh, looking like a rectangle if you want a bit of a better visual aid. Uh, and so for each table that we push together, you typically get a chip basket, or maybe you get 4 chip baskets, instead of just the three. It depended on how we were feeling, I guess, in that regard. But typically you would have one or 1.25 chip baskets per table, and you would have a thing of salsa on each side of the chip basket closest to where the person was sitting. So if you were sitting in front of a chip basket, you had a thing of salsa in between you and the chip basket to help you guys visualize that, instead of there being two things of salsa in between um, two chip biscuits. So that's kind of how we did it for parties. And the fact that I wasn't alone made it a lot better. Like if it was dead, then yes, I kind of was. But that's, I don't mind that. But when it was busy and when I was busy, then I typically got help with that, which makes it easier. But then comes the whole cleaning the table deal. Thing is, the thing is cleaning a table where a party sat. Take what I said about the square tables in particular and apply it to uh, basically apply it times three in this regard. But you have I think more chairs. So you have about the same amount of chairs, if not a little more than what you would usually have if you have three square tables on their own. And then here's the thing. Whenever I would walk by a party and I would see a kid that has cheese dip, it would I would cringe, because kids are great, but kids can get a bit messy. And whenever uh that cheese dip has time to sit on a surface, it's not necessarily and get dry, because the thing with cheese dip, of course, is that well we made it such that it was a bit runnier than you would see in like a Frito Lay's cheese dip that you could get in a store. This, like, you could dip a chip in, and you could like hold up the chip, and some cheese dip might fall off after a little bit. So so when you have a lot of cheese dip and a rag, of course the rag's going to get super dirty very quickly with that cheese, because once you get that cheese on there, you can't really wipe off the rest of the table, because then you'll get cheese everywhere on the table. But the thing is too is that whenever it has had that time to sit, excuse me, then it can get to a point where you kind of have to scrub a little bit. And usually, when you can only make one little swipe, or not one little swipe, but take a swipe at a time, not that big of a swipe at a time, a cheese dip with your rag before you have to change it out. And typically, we had two, maybe three rags that sat in the bucket at a time. So you typically couldn't swap rags at will. And I've had times where I've had to clean a party table like that, and then like half the so the restaurant's been full, and then we've had a party in, and then I think it was a Friday night, as I recall, but the restaurant was full, and uh, as it started to get to like 8 o'clock, which it closes, or 8 or 8:30, which it closes at 9 or 9:30 on Friday nights. Uh, that half the restaurant left. Um, half the restaurant left when I was trying to clean that table. So that sucked because then maybe you've got some other busboy with you working because it's Friday night. You probably got that help, but still, I mean, whenever there's people waiting to sit down, and it just creates this urgency. But you're like, I can't really clean this any faster because there's cheese dip on the table, and so it just sucked immensely. And then, so switching gears here, as a dishwasher, um, you would typically stay after we closed the restaurant if you were working Friday or Saturday night, which I don't mind. I mean, I was in school, uh, and had classes Monday morning and stuff, but uh, I mean, it's not like I had Saturday school or whatnot, so I didn't care about staying until we closed on Friday nights or Saturdays for that matter. But you know, you still had to do that and make sure that your area was all clean. So basically, the dishwashing layout. Before I get too far into dishwashing and talking about that, is that you have two industrial sized sinks. I think they're industrial sized sinks. But anyway, so no, actually you have three. So you have one that we use to soak dishes in and do whatever else. And then you have a middle one that I didn't really use for anything. Well, the middle one and the one on the right, because the one on the left we used for dishes and stuff. So the one in the middle and the one on the right, the chefs would typically put their pots and pans and cheese dip containers if we ran out of cheese dip, or whatever other plastic containers that generally put stuff in. And so if you're standing at the sink that's on the left, to your left you have uh, the racks that you can put your plates on, or pots on, or whatever else, or your pans or containers, what have you. And you have three, sometimes four of those. Well, you have a fourth one if you need it, but there's really room for one to put down, two to put down if you want, but typically two on the side out of the way in terms of racks. And then you have the disinfectant machine just behind your, or just over your left shoulder. And then behind you is where you can take the dishes out of the disinfectant machine. And then behind your right shoulder, you have a place where you can put some plates and some pots and whatever else. Because whenever it's typically really busy, that kitchen area where the chefs get plates and stuff to put the crazy chicken, the local pollo or the tacos or whatever they're cooking. That space is typically that space is big enough for two people to squeeze through, like side by side. But whenever those guys are opening up the oven and trying to throw stuff on the grill and doing whatever else, then they don't want somebody bumping around or uh, another person bumping around over there uh, that could be over there but probably shouldn't be at the moment. So typically we had a place where we could set and organize, clean plates, and eventually when it wasn't so busy, take them over there. And and in terms of getting the dishes, we we had these little totes that on shelves that well, I guess call them shelves, but the servers and the busboys put stuff on, and that we dishwashers can go with a cart that can hold 3 of these totes on and grab a tote of dishes and put them in the sink and in the warm water and the soap and doing whatever else, and then we can wash them and put them on the rack, put them through the disinfectant machine, and then put them over to the side so that we can uh, literally rinse and repeat. Yes, quite literally, rinse and repeat. Um, but yeah, and by the way, in terms of pay, I do not mind saying now because I mean I haven't worked there in years and years, but I will say that I only made minimum wage. I made the federal minimum wage, and that was and that's still to this day. Now that's slowly changing, but to this day, it is 7.25. But do I blame uh my boss? No, not at all, because he gave me the opportunity for me to work my first job, and I have told him that I am forever thankful for him. And sometimes I do go back to that restaurant, and for a few years after I worked there, I remained a regular where I would typically go there every Saturday night and eat and watch some college football. Talked about that a couple weeks ago, and um, football season's back. But anyway, this isn't about that. College football had its fun in the sun last week, but yeah, I mean, I was in high school, so it's not like I had to pay bills or rent or I didn't have that stuff that I have now. I didn't have to really buy my own food or pay for my own gas or just do a whole lot of that. But, now that I get paid a lot better or I get paid a lot better now and I have those responsibilities and I'm able to be on top of them and you know I make enough now. I'm not gonna comment on how much I make now, doing what I do, but you know, I didn't mind then how much I made because I mean, whenever you're a high schooler, typically for the most part, you don't really have a care in the world for how much money you make. I mean, sure, it's nice, but typically as a high schooler, you're not thinking about you're not having to spend a whole lot of money, uh, if at all, really. I mean, maybe you have to spend some money on gas, driving to and from school if you do that, but really, you could take the bus all 4 years of high school and not have to worry about gas. But this isn't a discussion about uh, high school and what they should make or whatever. I was fine with making 725 because that job took no skill for me to learn, unlike the job that I have now. So you know, I'm not going to get into that stuff, but um, whether I think those kinds of jobs should, well, you know what? I will throw my hat into the ring since I'm talking about it. I do not necessarily think that high schoolers should be paid more than double what I was paid in high school just to flip burgers at McDonald's or do whatever. I mean, sure, it would be nice for them to make more money. I mean, everybody would like to make more money. Heck, I would like to make more money even though I'm satisfied with what I make. Really. But I mean, I just I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, I get where they're coming from in terms of like cost of living and all that, but cost of living for a high schooler is not that high. It's not for the most part. I mean, like I said, you're not having to pay bills or rent or pay for a mortgage or just do any of that. I mean, but anyway, I'm not gonna touch that any farther than I already have. And see us, guys. I do believe that will do it for this storytime video. And so, like storytime video, I will see you all later. Goodbye, guys. Thank you all for watching.